Hello friends, it's Cara-Renee with B.Reborn Art and Healing. Today I decided to do something a little bit different. I usually don't chat while I'm creating. I get very distracted, but I'm on a little bit of a time crunch. We're leaving to go camping, and I thought, I've got some time this morning before we leave, so I go ahead and create. So I'm going to be creating a journal page in my homemade disc-bound journal. And I'll be using some golden fluid acrylics, as well as I'm going to be using the circle stamp to create some circular interest on the piece. I'll be using this this is a new Altenew stamp that I just got. I got it for like 50% off at Joann's, and I just love the bloom there. And so I'll be using this stamp that says, "Together we will bloom and grow." I'll be creating some interest. Oh, and so I went ahead and stamped that on a piece of watercolor paper so that it's all prepared. I wanted to be as prepared on this piece as possible because, again, I'm not really used to kind of improvising as I go, and I thought it would be a good exercise in a little bit of creative discipline, so I'm going to give it a try. And I thought I might add this lace, I'm not sure, and so I hope that you'll bear with me as I may need to reach and grab for things as I go along, but I thought this would be fun because then I don't have to actually edit the video, which is very, very time consuming, my friends. It is extremely time consuming. And then this is a hydrangea flower from one of Sean Petit's collage packs, and I've been wanting to use it for a while and couldn't quite find the piece that I wanted to use it on. So I'm going to be using this as my focal image, and then a variety of background papers, also from this one is from Sean's shop as well. It's called the She paper, I believe, and it's just this beautiful paper with all these truths about this woman who is deciding to basically make some changes. She decided to do what makes her happy and things like that. So I'm going to use that. And I chose, back to the stamp, I did choose this one because I was just thinking about current events, and as we all probably are still in the midst of all of this, and was just thinking about, again, all the division that's created by differing opinions and the stress, the anxiety that's created from all of these circumstances. And I thought, the key here is that together we can grow, together we can live, together we can accomplish many, many things. And so that's what I'm hoping to bring to this piece. So, and I thought, I'm not sure if I'm going to use these. They might be a little bit too bold for the piece, but this is some old tissue paper that I used and did some stenciling, not stenciling, some stamping after using the Dina Wakley acrylic sprays. So I thought I would go ahead and use that potentially. And then some old book pages, which I love. So these are from my stash, actually. So I'll be using those. And this is the disc-bound journal that I was talking about. And I really like it because I can actually pull out pages and work in the book and then put them back in. So I really, really like that. So I'm going to go ahead and pull a piece out here. I can't remember if this is mixed media paper or watercolor paper. It doesn't really matter in this instance because I'm going to be covering up the entire surface with collage papers. So, and this is a little misleading. This is not gel medium. I just haven't relabeled my little bottle here. This is Liquitex matte medium. So I'll be using that to adhere my papers. And really quickly before I forget, because I'm not used to talking while I do this, I'm going to make sure that my phone is on silent so I don't get some kind of a notification while I'm chatting here. So I'm going to go ahead and start with my background papers. Oh, I think I'll turn this one over. I actually, when I was playing with those acrylic sprays, I went ahead and used this paper as to rescue some of that leftover paint. So this is perfect. So again, I'll be using my Liquitex matte medium to adhere the paper. I just love the old book pages. Sometimes I feel bad using them when they're old, but there's just nothing like the feel of the paper, the crispness, as well as the fragility of it. I just really, really like it. So I'm going to go ahead and put that on this side. And then I'm going to wait to do the upper coat until I get all the papers on. Save me a little bit of time. And then let's see, this one. Do I want to use this side or this side? I think this side would be lovely. So we're going to do that. I tend to be pretty generous with the matte medium. I do have to watch out for those holes because I want to make sure that I can get the page back in my book. So I am going to go over it with some matte medium because I like to take some color to the edges, and I've had problems in the past because I haven't prepped that with gel medium or matte medium. So I'm going to go ahead and glue this down since I'm here. And let's see, get this on here nice and pretty. I'm going to scooch it as far over as I can just to fully cover that. And I do sometimes use the originals. I know that that can kind of make people a little freaked out because they're old, but I do have a lot of old books that I've collected, so once in a while I do go ahead and use the originals. They are scanned also, so I can still use the copy if I want to continue to use the particular pattern or the piece that I really like. So there's that, and I'm going to come in with, I think, just a little bit of this on the bottom here. Another old piece of paper, and I am putting it upside down. I don't really think it matters. I think it creates some really interesting effects on the page when the paper goes in other directions. It's just a little bit of weirdness. And I think I'm going to go ahead and use my sheet paper. I don't want to use a lot of it just because I don't want to take away from all of this, but I really do like it. So I'm going to go ahead and use some of it here. So I'm going to cut off this white border. I don't care for that. And I always have to put my plug in for Sean. If you've never checked out her website, her stencils, and her collage papers, I really strongly encourage you to take a peek. The stencils are incredible. The collage papers are amazing. I use a lot of them. I mean, I have a huge stack printed out because there's just a huge variety that just work for anything that you're trying to create. So I'm going to go ahead and put some sheet paper here. And this is just going to create some interest in the background. Often some of this stuff doesn't really show through, just will peek through depending on how much media I end up adding. And I never really know what I'm going to do until I do it. So it's very intuitive and very freeing. So I'm just going to follow that in this process here. I think I'm going to do one more narrow bit of the sheet paper here. And again, I don't want to overdo it because I don't want to take away from what's already here. I think I'm going to put one more piece down here on the bottom, just for some interest there. Just to kind of tie it all together. It's really nice to do things in odd numbers, particularly threes work really well because they allow the viewer to be able to move around the page or the piece and see all the things that are connecting, which is really nice. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use a little bit of this. I decided I would go ahead and do that. This is actually, they call it tissue paper or parchment paper, but it's kind of in the middle between a really thin tissue paper and a parchment paper. I find it's really durable. This has acrylic spray on it, and it's super, it's not hard to tear, but it's not easy either. So if that makes any sense. It's not super fragile now because the acrylic creates this kind of a plastic coating on the tissue paper. So I'm going to go ahead and just apply this here and there, just because I'm also trying to use my stash, use what I have, and this has been sitting in my bin, so I thought I would go ahead and use it. And for those of you who wonder when you see these kinds of videos why we put all this background paper down and then we end up covering it up, again, it is just because it creates some interest to the background and some really surprise effects, which are really nice, because things peek through, and I never cease to be amazed at what ends up peeking through, that I didn't really expect to, that ends up having a lot of meaning to what is happening. And I don't know how much of that happens kind of subconsciously as we're creating, but it's usually a really cool thing. So I think I'm going to stop there. I don't want to overdo it. I don't want to take away from some of what's already going on in this page. So, and I'm just going to lift this up so that you can see a close-up. It's just really beautiful, really simple. And so I'm going to go ahead and pause and dry this really quick and be right back with you. Okay, so this is now dry. I'm going to go ahead and push the background back a little bit with a little bit of gesso. So I'm going to be using my Liquitex gesso and my brayer. And I'm going to go ahead and, not with that, I'm going to grab a little bit of gesso onto my mat here. I'm sorry that that's off camera. Unfortunately, it's hard to get everything in view, and I still have the video be close enough so that you can see the detail and what's going on. So I'm just using the brayer just to kind of push that back a little bit. And the other thing about the gesso is it does create some interesting texture, that when you start applying paints and things, it creates a really nice texture under that. That's a little bit much there, but we will address that here in a second. Again, I don't want to lose it all, but I do want to push it back so it's not quite as, oh, there we go. So it's not quite as bold, but still visible. I like this brayer. I don't really get it out that often. I did my studio tour, and then I tweaked some things again in the studio, and put some things that I really would benefit from using regularly closer to me. So the brayer, this small brayer, is one of those. So I decided I would go ahead and make that a little bit more accessible. So I'm just going to wipe this up a little bit. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pause again and go ahead and dry this really quick. Okay, so that is dry, and there's just a close-up of that. Just a little bit of subtle pushing back of the color, so it's not too bold. Now I'm going to go ahead and apply some of my acrylic, my fluid acrylic, excuse me, and I believe I'm going to use Cerulean Blue Deep, Quinacridone Magenta, which I thought would be really pretty with the, we'll see how that works with the leaves, and then the green gold. So this actually is a new color, the Quinacridone Magenta. I went to Joann's. They were running a sale on their fine art supplies, and then an additional 20% off. of everything, regular and clearance. So I went ahead and picked up a couple more of these, trying to be a little bit more frugal and not buy everything under the sun, and only buy what I actually need to replenish my studio. So, oh, that's a really pretty color. I'm not sure if that's going to work though. You see that color? It's, well, you can't see, it's more purpley. So I'm not really sure that that's what I'm going for. So I'm going to take a moment here and switch this out. I'm going to grab some quinacridone red. I think it's going to be better. It's not a fluid acrylic. They were out of the fluid acrylic. So I'm going to use this, it's the Golden Artist acrylic. So, because basically what I want to do is create some red behind where the flower is going to go. So that's kind of my thought process. And then I'll be using the other colors here and there on the piece. So I'm going to start with the lightest color, which is the green gold. Just going to squirt some out here on my mat. And again, apologize that you can't really see all that. I'm just going to use my finger and play a little bit. And then just, again, just moving around the page, kind of spreading out the elements so that it's pleasing to the eye. And I probably will, the green and the blue will not be a problem to mix, but I want to make sure that I don't get mud by mixing the quinacridone red and the green, so I'll be drying after I apply the blue. And so, and often with this, as you've probably seen in some of my other videos, there's a lot of back and forth action when creating this kind of color in the back. You kind of go back and forth until it looks like what you want. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I want to kind of fade out the edges of that paper. Oh, I love the color that created. Wow, look at that. Beautiful color. And the really nice thing about these acrylics, as with any color, some are more light fast than others. And this cerulean is more opaque than transparent, so it's not as great as like the green gold. Which you can see, you can actually see the letters through the paper or through the paint, but that's okay. Again, just using my finger, just playing around. It's fun to get inky sometimes. Sometimes I'm not in the mood for it, but I'm feeling excited to get out of the house and do some camping with the family. It'll be my girls and my husband. My son is on a trip, so they won't be joining us, but hopefully they are having a great time where they are. We'll be seeing them soon and having the kids over for several days, so that'll be fun. I've never been able to do that because I'm always working, but now that I work for the school district, I have a little bit more freedom. So I think we need a little bit more blue in here. It's getting a little bit dark, so let's see if I can bring some gesso in and lighten up some of that. Just experimenting, guys. This in your journal, that's kind of the goal, is just to play around with technique and with just being kind of spontaneous. And that's really the fun of it. So I have found that I do my best creating when I don't take myself so seriously. And so that's what I'm trying to do today. Often I'm trying to create with them, as a means to the end, and it doesn't always go well. So letting yourself be a child, in creating is a really good thing. And I can tell just by now that talking while I'm doing this is really helping me move through the process. So I may be trying this a little bit more. It does mean a longer video, so because there won't be any editing. I'll just be basically posting it as it is once I'm done. So so as long as you guys don't mind that, and if you do mind it, then that's okay too. You could change the speed in the settings. I've never really done that. I understand that it makes the person who's talking kind of sound like a chipmunk because it speeds up your voice. But you could always mute and then just watch the process, which is another option. So I'm going to go ahead, and I love how this pink, I'm going to make sure I don't affect this because I really like how that subtle pink is showing through. So I'm going to work really hard at not changing that. So I'm going to go ahead and pause and dry this. Okay, that is dry, and there's just a close-up of that. I love the effect that I got here on the edges here, creating a little bit of interest without any bulk. And normally I have a hard time not creating a lot of texture to my background, but I'm gonna let my my stamping and things like that kind of do the work here rather than adding a lot of texture. So here's the quinacridone red. Really, really beautiful color. I really like it. And I'm also practicing putting a little bit out. So I only put out like a dime size piece of this just to try. I waste a lot of paint. I'm sad to say that I do, but I do. So I'm just going to kind of put some red here and there. Create a little bit of interest for the behind my my flower, as well as here and there. Don't want to put the red just in one place because that will make the piece look kind of out of balance, and so I'm going to put it here and there around the whole page. So hopefully this will be pleasing. I love the color that this is creating, mixing with that other stuff. Wow, gorgeous. It doesn't matter how much I put here because that's where the flower is going to go. I really don't need to put anything, I guess, but because it's going to be covered up. But again, it's the layers that are fun, and that it's what creates kind of the ability, I think, to continue to work through the piece because color is very inspirational. And so there's that. Hopefully that's not too overpowering. I may decide to come back in and bring in some more of that green and blue. We'll see how that goes. So I'm going to pause again so that we can go ahead and adhere the focal image. Okay, that is all dried. And I'm feeling like it's a little bit crazy, so I'm going to pull some of this back with some alcohol. Just going to use my baby wipe and apply a little bit and see what we get. You never know. I don't want to pull a bunch of it up, but it feels like it's really, really busy. Let's see if I can tone it down a little bit. The alcohol is really not working in this case. So let me try a paper towel. Might be better. It's not coming up as easily as I would have thought. That's okay. I feel like that's even better. It's a little bit not quite so busy, in my opinion. It's feeling festive. So I'm going to go ahead and get my matte medium out here again, and I'm going to go ahead and adhere my my flower. I think that is good. I'm happy with that. I think it's going to be beautiful. I'm trying to decide where I want this though. Didn't quite get as much red around this flower. as I wanted. So forgot that that was my intention here. I'm going to go ahead and get some more on there because my flower, I want my flower to really pop here, so I need a little bit more paint. I used my dime size dollop, so another half of a dime size. And again, just really wanting to put a little bit more red around where that flower is going to sit. So often when I'm creating, I do forget. The focal image, the focal point is always the hardest part for me. I'm not sure what that's about, but I'm working on it. And so creating the background with the focal point in mind is really important, because you can save yourself time and frustration and work by thinking about where that focal image is going to go before you start working on it. So I'm going to go ahead and dry this. I'm not going to mute, just dry it. That should be good. I'm going to go ahead and apply my matte medium. Get my flower here. Hydrangeas, I always say a flower is my favorite flower, but I have so many, and I think I love them for so many different reasons. But I love the hydrangeas. I love the multi-headed flower look of this particular one. It's my favorite flower to watercolor paint because it just, oh, it's just so gorgeous. And there's so many variations of color with a hydrangea in nature. And it's just really fun. I really get lost in that process. I haven't successfully done one of my own creation in watercolor, but I'm working towards that. And then I like roses for a lot of the same reasons, but they have a little bit more of a sentimental feel for me. So I'm going to go ahead and pause this again. I don't want you to wait through the drying and lengthen the video, so I'll be right back. I did decide I was going to go ahead and do a little bit more of the green gold. I think my blue I'm happy with, but I feel like I need some more of the green. So I'm going to go ahead and play with that a little bit. Dime size dollop. Just kind of, oh yeah, I like that. Let's really, really get this in here. This is a very transparent, you can tell by the label, whoops, the label that it is extremely transparent. Well, let's see, where does it have transparency? I don't see it on this bottle, but you can see by how you can see those black lines through that. That tells you how transparent the color really is. And green gold is, oh, it is a phenomenal color. I absolutely love it. It's one of my favorites, just one of them. And I may touch up the flower with some acrylic paint. We'll see how I feel about this as we go through this. I'm going to apply a little bit more green over here. The edging here seems pretty crazy, but that's okay. Crazy is the name of the game today, I think. Really looking forward to camping. Really, really. It's a hard thing for me to do because it's got some history to it that's not pleasant. But I'm working on that and just trying to really be present in my life and with my family, my kids and grandkids, and trying to enjoy it. I'm allergic. I think I'm allergic to the campfire, so I'm going to use my mask that I have to wear all the time when I'm out and see if I can help with my breathing by using a mask when I'm sitting around the fire. So probably more information than you needed, but I'm going to pause again and dry. One moment. The other thing I was thinking about as I was drying was one, I'm going to do a little bit of stenciling using Sean Petit's lace stencil. As you can see, it is very well loved and used. So I'm going to apply a little bit of visual interest to the background using that, and probably some white, titanium white paint. The other thing I was thinking though with this flower is, and why it struck me as the one I wanted to use with this quote, is that we as people, we are tightly bound, whether we want to be or not, whether we like it or not, whether we agree with one another or not, but we are tightly packed. And we would do best to embrace one another and try to lift one another up so that we can all live in our gifting, live in the gifts that we've been given as people and personalities and leaders and all of those things, rather than fight against each other. So again, just some deeper thinking about this hydrangea flower, apparently. So I'm going to go ahead and use this stencil. I'm debating. I might I might do a little bit of the pink, or the red rather. The fluid acrylic doesn't, oh, that's not fluid acrylic. Great. Fluid acrylic does not tend to work very well in a stencil, so, but this is not fluid. This is regular acrylic. So I'm going to go ahead and grab a sponge and see what we can get here. So again, just a dollop, just a dime-sized dollop of paint. Don't need much. And then I think I'm going to just move down the side of this stencil, actually using the edge of the stencil here. And then I'll move down, I'm going to butt that right up against that. And then I'm just going to move down the page and use the whole stencil. We'll see. This is fairly transparent paint, so it may work out really, really well because we'll still be able to see some of the background through it, I'm thinking. But my thinking is not always on par, so we will learn together. Isn't that what it's about? That's what I love about YouTube. I love the freedom of creating on YouTube and being able to meet the needs of people. Even though the needs all vary and what interests people and what kind of art they like and what kind of art they create is just all very individual. So I think I'm gonna like this. Here's the reveal. Oh yeah, I love that. Okay, so I'm gonna bring it down. I don't think I can continue it though, so we're just gonna have to we're going to have to just have it be what it is. I can't line it up. The stencil's not long enough for the page. So we're just going to do this. And I may come over that again. Oh, I love that. But I think to add some interest, I am going to bring it over into this corner also, just to balance out the whole piece again. This is my favorite stencil. You probably heard me say that before. Oh, I love that. Beautiful. Let's come up in this corner here. I'm really liking how this is turning out. Sweet. Love that. I think I'll create a natural edge there. When I do my shading, I think I'll make sure that I get a line there. I think that would be really, really nice. Looks like I didn't end up using the lace, but that's okay. That sometimes happens. I do think I need some white on this, and so I'm going to bring in some white somehow, with a stencil probably. I could use a stamp though. Maybe I'll use the stamp and I'll do white and black with the stamp. Unfortunately, I have to use paint when I'm doing white. I can use, you know, my archival ink for black, but there's no white paint and white ink that doesn't always just dissolve and run and stuff when I try to do that. So, so let's get some white out here. And this time I'm going to try to, can I put this in view? Yeah. So in this case, because I'm going to be actually using it as a stamp, I'm going to go ahead and brush this out like this, just so that it's kind of as big as the stamp, hopefully. I don't do this very often, so hopefully it will work. The beauty of it is it's acrylic paint, and so if I don't like the impression that I get, I can just wipe it off. So here's the stamp. I actually rehomed in my studio all of my woodblock stamps because I have a lot, and I had them stored in a bin and I never looked at them or saw them, and so I'd never used them. So this is me trying to use what I have. So I'm going to use this just in various places around the piece. See how it works? Oh yeah, I think that's nice. So we're going to go down here. Oh, I really like that. Really like that. Yeah, and I think 3 is good. So I'm going to wipe this off because I'm going to go ahead and dry this really quick, and then I'll be back and we'll do the black archival ink, same thing. So while I had the camera paused, I did go ahead and give a coat of the green gold to my sentiment. I don't know how much of this I'm going to actually use in terms of width, but I thought I would go ahead and paint the whole thing. So we'll wait for that to dry. This is dry, so I'm going to go ahead and get my archival ink out. And I'm going to use that same stamp. Keeping in mind, anytime you use a stamp and use acrylic paint, you do want to make sure that you get all the paint out of all the crevices or it will ruin your stamp. So just a FYI. They're pretty forgiving. The thing with the wood blocks, wood stamps, is you can't obviously put them in water because it's wood. So I just wipe it off with a baby wipe. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of just put the black here and there also. Hopefully it's not, I may have to bring in some other black because I feel like the circles are going to be a little bit weird, but we'll see. We'll see. It's all good. One here. And perfect impression is not necessarily necessary. So I do want to make sure I get enough. Perfect. Okay. Again, just wiping off the block really well. I hadn't used this one apparently before, so that's all right. And the archival ink does dry pretty quickly, but I'm feeling like it needs something else, and I'm not sure what. So I'm going to find another stamp really quickly to use. So I'm going to pause just a moment. I think perhaps these stamps. I believe that they're from Finnabair. Unfortunately, when I started purchasing my supplies, I did not know that I would be actually using them in YouTube tutorials. So many of these I really fight to find the maker. So I apologize for that, but I think I'm going to go ahead and use maybe the butterfly once or not. I think the butterflies might be a little bit too much, so maybe just this little one. I don't want the piece to be too busy, but I feel like it needs some more black. And then these, they're rubber stamps on the back, but sometimes they lose their stick. So I'm going to go ahead and get a glue stick here really quick and just glue it to my block. Doesn't hurt anything. Hopefully that'll do it. My archival ink again. And I think I'm just going to put it where the circles intersect. Kind of. We'll see how that goes. Not a great impression though. Not sure what's up with that. But that's okay. Doesn't have to be perfect. Oh, that's better. I wonder if I can do that other one again. I wonder if I can line it up reasonably. Sometimes that's a disaster. Ah, double. I got a double impression. So I'm going to use some alcohol and see if I can get that up. it's working. It's just going to take away a bit of my white circle, but that's okay. Again, perfection is not the name of the game here. I'm just trying to just intuitively create what brings me joy. So that will do. So I don't know if the butterfly was a good choice or not, but I think it's having trouble with this white acrylic paint. Perfect. Okay, so I'm going to use that one, and then I think I'm going to use this circle also. So again, need a little bit of glue stick. And it's in German, I believe. Yeah, I feel like it just needed, it needed some other focus here with the black. So I think this was a good choice. So we're going to just put this here and there. And, you know, the beautiful thing about art journaling is that you're creating for yourself. You're not creating for the public. You're not I mean, I'm doing a tutorial, but I'm creating this for me. And so the rules are different. I mean, it's hard to say that I don't create without rules, because I still do, regardless of whether or not I'm creating for myself or creating for a tutorial. But there is a different freedom in it that is really beautiful. So I'm happy with that. I almost feel like the white is a little bit too bold. I may splatter it with white just to give it a little bit more oomph. I think I might do that now, because I can wipe it off of the flower if I get it where I don't want it. So I'm going to go ahead and get a little bit of the titanium white out, and then I'm going to get some water. And I'm going to spritz that really quick, and then I'm going to sprinkle. I can find a good brush for sprinkling. A little bit of water. My water bottle needs, oh, you know what? I think I'm going to use some acrylic. On second thought, acrylic ink works really great for this. So let me grab that really quick. This is my Liquitex titanium white acrylic paint, or acrylic ink. I do think it needs some, now that we've got the black in place, I think it needs some white. So I'm going to go ahead and squirt some of this out on my mat. And then use a brush. I'm not sure if this one's going to work, but we're going to try it. And just do some sprinkling. Splattering, whatever you want to call it. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It needed that. I kind of like it on the leaves. I might leave that on the leaves. I'm not sure if I care for it on the flower, but we'll see. There we go. Very nice. Like that. I'm going to take it off of the flower though. Very nice. Oh, I'm so happy with this. I'm so happy that I'm talking while I'm doing this. It's going to be a long video, so again, you can fast forward it or whatever you need to do. So let me pause really quick and I'll be right back. Okay, folks, we're in the home stretch. So this is dried. And again, you can just, I think that was just what the piece needed. The page needed was the white splatters. So I really like that. So I'm going to go ahead and work on my sentiment now. I'm going to go ahead and put it down here, I think kind of overlapping the leaves. So I am going to cut off the sides just a little bit. Don't need it to be that wide. And again, it says, together we will bloom and grow. And this is from Unity Stamp Company. If you're looking for some amazing stamps, check them out. They're phenomenal. I have a lot of them. And just love them. So I'm going to go ahead and use my my archival ink here and just do some edging on this quote. And then the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to apply, I'm not going to do a dark border around my page like I typically would do with my Soho Soft Pastel. I think I'm going to leave it, but I am going to come around the edges with a little bit of the blue paint just to create some interest. So I think I'm going to put this down here, probably about right there would be perfect. So I'm going to go, I think I'm going to use some heavy gel just because that's, it's watercolor paper, and so it can be a little bit hard to have stick. So where's my heavy gel? Well, hold on. Whew, it was at the bottom of the stack. Doesn't it figure? But again, I'm using the heavy gel because I stamped this on watercolor paper. So just because it was what I had nearby. So it's a little bit thicker paper. So I want to make sure I get good adhesion. And put it down here, I think. It's right above that little butterfly. Make him nice and at home. Go ahead and just, oh, yikes. Don't do that. Get down here. Oh, I just love that. Very happy with that. So I'm going to do a little bit of matte medium over the top of that just to give it a good seal, because that acrylic paint is not sealed and the ink is not sealed. So I like doing that. Perfect. So I'm going to go ahead and do the blue around the edging really quick, just because I don't want the video to be too long. And then off camera, I will do my my charcoal around my image, and then I'll come back and show you a final look at the piece. One moment. Okay, so I went ahead and did my edging as I talked about with the blue. That's the cobalt or cerulean blue deep. Went around these edges. I forgot that edge. I'll have to do that in a moment. And I did come in with some soft pastels and just brightened this hydrangea up a little bit with some pink, a couple of variations of reds and pinks from my Soho Soft Pastels. And that is it, my friends. I will be posting this probably when I get back from the weekend. I hope that you have that you've enjoyed the video and that you'll like and subscribe to my YouTube channel if you haven't already. Please feel free to leave a comment if you what you thought about this video, being that it is longer. It's going to be close to an hour, which is really long. So I'd be interested in hearing what you think about that. I'm thinking that if I do it more often, I will get quicker and I'll be able to really capitalize on my drying times and being able to pause the camera and things like that. So I am practicing and will continue to practice. So let me know what you think. I really love how it turned out. It was exactly what I was going for. So I'm super happy. Thank you so much for watching. Take care. Bye-bye.